So we got a couple questions here that kind of share some themes. So I'm gonna sort of like condense them into one thing here, and we can talk about the issue. Um, what is your take on Black Lives Matter and connecting that to issues of police brutality?
Well, Black Lives Matter, I've supported from the very beginning. As a criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney, I obviously have been very involved in terms of the criminal justice system and also in I've sued the police department, various police departments from all around the state for different violations of civil rights, and almost always they involve um, use of force against minorities, whether it be blacks or Hispanics or whatever minority group. The key here we have to focus on is education, the police departments. And you're starting to see a little bit of it, not even close to enough, but you are starting to see a little bit of it in groups like the LAPD and the San Diego Police Department, because they're starting to focus more on de-escalation, which is a real key here, versus weapons training. We know from history of the LAPD that at the 6-month academy, they would spend as much as 55 to 60% of their times on weapons training versus 4 to 5% of their time on actually de-escalating situations. That needs to be reversed. We have instances repeatedly where men and occasionally women are shot and killed, almost always minorities, and they don't have a weapon on them. Or they have a weapon, for example, a pipe. Just the other day in LA, there was an article about a gentleman who was shot because he had a pipe. Well, I defended actually an Asian American young gentleman who was shot and killed. I sued on behalf of his family, who had a pipe, and he was walking down the street, and the police basically jumped in front of him, said stop. He turned, walked in a different direction, and they shot him. And their argument was exactly the same as this one I just read about yesterday. He could have been swinging that pipe. He could have killed somebody. Well, there were 100 different things they could have done to do other than shoot him, and they chose not to. We've got to go back to that. We've got to go forward to that. We have to learn to teach de-escalation. And I will tell you just real quickly, amazingly, and I think this is something people may want to Google, a police officer in West Virginia went into a situation. There was a gentleman, I don't remember, he had a weapon, it may have been a gun. And this police officer refused to shoot. And he was talking to the guy. And he was actually diffusing the situation. 2 police officers showed up. Within a minute, they shot, killed the man. They kept their jobs. The police officer who refused to shoot lost his job. Okay?
Wow.
You can Google that. He is actually suing. He actually lost his job because of that, because he was focusing on de-escalating the situation. The others just got there and shot. And again, it was a minority.
Well, don't you think this is one of those things? Because I say, and I'm with you on the training, but I think it's deeper than that. I think there is a true systemic problem in law enforcement that, I mean, training's a big part of it, yeah, but it also goes into screening. It goes into the culture that they subscribe to. It goes into just all of that. I mean, there's members of the KKK that are police officers.
Yes.
That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be able to, just do a basic Google search and find this stuff out and be like, how did this person become a police officer? That's something that should have been nipped in the bud out the get-go, and they never should have gotten that job ever. Where they're over militarized to the nth degree. You have towns of like 8,000 people that have tanks. What do they need a tank for other than to make a really bad decision drunk on a Saturday night sometime? There's no reason for it at all. They're over militarized. They're not trained properly. And the system as a whole doesn't screen properly or prepare properly. And we have this, I mean, it's a borderline legal gang at this point.
Well, in some cases, they do have gangs. I know you're familiar with some of the police departments were outed a few years ago where they were actual gangs within the police department. I think one of them was called the Vikings, and I can't remember what the others were called, but there were literally gangs where they had symbols and where their entire mission was to go around and basically abuse minorities. And you're right about screening. I would agree with you 100% on screening, but let me tell you about another practice that occurs that's very problematic. Most young police officers, excuse me, in sheriff's departments, especially this always happens in Orange County, but other counties as well, the first job they're assigned to do is to go work in the jails. to basically go in and oversee and work with the cells and work with the prisoners there. Now, what this does is they have no training whatsoever in how to do it and how to handle prisoners. They certainly have no training on how to handle the mentally ill who we're now warehousing in jails. They have no ability to handle this. So what happens is their first experience as a police officer is an extraordinarily negative one. Extraordinarily negative, because they're dealing with prisoners who are, some of them are bad. Some of them are throwing things at them. Some of them are threatening them. The mentally ill are throwing feces at them and things like that. That's their first experience as a police officer. So now they have this negative sort of feelings toward the very people they're supposed to be protecting. That's their first, and they may do this for 2 or 3 years, and that's their first sort of introduction to it. Then we send them out on the streets. And now we're sending out on the streets an angry person who believes that anybody who is a minority or somebody who is out on the, maybe living in a bad area is automatically, they're going to have a negative connotation. That's how we're sending them out on the streets. That needs to stop as well. That's a real problem.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. That was a clip from Get Your News On with Ron, the world's first viewer-curated streaming news show. What does that mean? That means I log on to a stream and people tweet me articles over on Twitter at Ron Placone, or they use our Reddit subsection, which is just Get Your News On with Ron over on Reddit. And that's how we build the show. I'm seeing all these articles for the first time. We are literally getting our news on together. Follow me on Twitter at Ron Placone so you can participate. And this show streams live every Tuesday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So please do tune in. If you want to support this show, you can do so over on patreon.com/Ron Placone, where for as low as $1 a month, you get access to exclusive podcasts every week, exclusive videos, free tickets to shows when I'm performing in your town, and more for as low as $1 a month. Please do consider it. Thank you so much for your support. This has been Get Your News On with Ron.